Continue with our study of Parshat Emor, a parsha specifically, at least the first part, about the Kohanim and some of the restrictions that are given to the Kohanim. Regular Jewish people have certain restrictions. The Kohanim have more restrictions, right? We talked yesterday about them not going into cemeteries, tumat mate, the idea that's the opposite of Egyptian priests. They have certain marriage limits, you can't marry a divorcee. And then there are stricter limits for the Kohen Gadol, even beyond that, who can't even marry a widow. What we need to know is about the Kohanim is that they're not spiritually better, superior. They have certain constraints, greater constraints that expand outward from regular life of a regular Jew. So a regular Jew can become tameh for relatives. The Kohen is limited in becoming tameh only for close family members. The Kohen Gadol, not even for their parents. The Kohen is not a holier person, but a Kohen is a living representative of, I don't know, one way of saying it is sort of the availability of being sacred at any time. The Kohen's life is structured. It's a state of potential service. They always have to be ready. So the more sacred your role, the less personal flexibility that you have in that role. It's not that the Kohen is greater. It's that it's not about himself. He needs to be ready to serve the nation. And so some of that flexibility is taken away. His availability has to be there. You can ask Rav Shmuel about being a rabbi and the idea of availability to people and being right all in. So closest to God, is it measured by freedom? Is it constrained in sort of in service? But the Kohen Gadol always has to be ready. The other Kohanim, basically 99% of the time, have to be ready to serve God. So it's not that the Kohen is better. It's not that the Kohen is holier. It's not about a hierarchy. He serves in the Mikdash. His life is more visible. Their lives are more visible. They're more representative of the people, representative of God. And therefore, things are more regulated about what he can and cannot do. It's not a simple idea and thought and raises many more questions, but worth at least starting. Let's talk about something that is more difficult, which is the question of blemishes, of mumim. The Torah has a list of different physical blemishes that disqualify a Kohen from the avoda in the Beit HaMikdash. Right? So if a Kohen is blind or partially blind, or a disfigured face, or a broken foot, or a hand, or some sort of eye or skin conditions, that Kohen is not allowed to serve in the temple. That Kohen still retains, in a sense, a private kedusha, that he can eat truma. He can eat gifts that were given specifically to the Kohen. He can eat other kadshim, other parts of sacrifice that were given to the Kohen, but he is not allowed to serve in the Beit HaMikdash, which of course is a very difficult thing. The Torah is not saying that the person is spiritually inferior. The person's allowed, this Kohen is allowed to eat truma, he's allowed to eat from the kadshim, but he's not excluded from holiness. But it's a difficult thing. It seems to say that if you have some sort of mum to you, that you can't serve, which is very difficult. It sort of goes against the idea that we may have spoken about with Moshe Rabbeinu. God doesn't choose, one could say, Moshe, despite the fact that he had some sort of speech impediment. Perhaps God chooses Moshe because he had some sort of speech impediment, if that's what he has. It's not clear exactly what Moshe's issue with speaking and public speaking is, but God chooses him perhaps because of that reason. But here, the Torah is saying otherwise, and there are obviously a lot of questions. Talk about it for a few minutes. Now, part of the issue that's going on here is that the Mikdash is not just about truth, but also a symbolic presentation before before the people. The Kohen functions as a, sort of a messenger of rituals and a symbolic person representing wholeness, perfection, the unity of Bnei Yisrael. Think of the Kohen Gadol and the 12 stones that he had on his breastplate and the 2 stones on his shoulders with the name. He represents sort of the wholeness and the completeness of the Jewish people. And sadly, a mum would be some sort of distraction. And it's very difficult. I won't. I can't. I can't say that it's not. You have sort of 2 competing truths or ideas that are coming against each other. You have, an idea of human dignity. A person's worth is not diminished if they are handicapped or if they have some sort of disfigurement, but you also sort of have the symbolism and the ritual and the public performance and people seeing it. So the Torah, what the Torah does, and it doesn't answer all the questions, is it separates the holiness and the worth of the person. The Kohen can continue to eat the truma. It can eat for the specific portions of the korbanot of kadshim that were given to the Kohen. He's not less of a Kohen, but functionally he is excluded from service. It's a difficult thing. I won't lie to you, at least for me, and say others. And happy to hear more ideas. About it, and there are different opinions about it. There's the Rambam talks about it in the Moreh Nevuchim, and really talks about how the avodah and the mikdash has to inspire awe and it has to bring attention to God, and something that would be visually distracting or regular or striking would distract from the goal. And so it's not a moral issue. It's sort of an aesthetic issue. It's sort of an issue of distraction. And the Mikdash is a place of very high sensitivity. We talked about this, right? It's very regulated. God is here. You can go here. You can go there. You can't go here. You can't go there. This is the time. Things are very structured, very calibrated. And so the Kohen represents not the morality or better humans, but sort of this idealized and structured ritual status, and therefore we are very, very careful with it. The Ramban, as he does sometimes, disagrees with the Rambam and says it's not just about what people are going to see. General sort of disagreements with the Rambam and the Ramban about the purpose of the Mishkan and the Mikdash and of sacrifices generally. And he more talks about that there is a structure of holiness, and it's not just what people are going to see, but the system of the mikdash is real and it's binding, but it doesn't define the human value. And so the Ramban is it's not just about representation. For the service to work, this is the type of person that you need to have there. This is what God demands. Does it mean the other person is lesser? No. But does the person feel that way? I assume some of them would, and some of them then wouldn't. But this is sort of the question. Now, again, this is very difficult today. It seems that the Torah devalues people with disabilities, and so again, different ways to answer the question. The Torah is only this is a ritual aesthetic. It's not a judgment of the person. It's not a societal rejection of the person. It's only specifically in the temple, but I think, if we spoke to a lot of women within Orthodoxy who are told, "Oh, you're holier, so you don't have to read from the Torah or do these other things," that oftentimes doesn't work. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. So it remains a very discomforting and idea in the Torah um, with real with real tension. And the reality is, however, that we know that this is true. If we think of, I'm not saying that it's right. You think of public figures, usually they're tall, quote unquote, tall, dark, and handsome, right? The people who are better looking, who are taller, are the who are oftentimes are usually the ones who are in better shape. The people on TV and diplomats and presidents, etc. It's not always 100%, but people who are in visually who are representatives of people who stand there, whether it be for rituals or for governmental. Oftentimes, the appearances are very, very important. It's not something that is right. I'm just pointing out the reality. So it's not so surprising if it's the reality today, then it's the reality, back then. There are two women who have the same singing voice. Which one is the music label going to sign? They're probably going to sign the one who is more attractive. That's a sad reality of life, but it's something that was back then and something that is now, and maybe hopefully it's something that we can move beyond. We have this in certain, you know, communities where if you look at some, ancient laws and different laws, you could question whether somebody who is blind or somebody who is deaf or somebody who has mental handicaps can go and get an aliyah and certain things and involvement in the service and thankfully while in the many Orthodox Jewish communities have figured out ways halachically to make that work, to allow this person who has mental disabilities, that you could say, oh, they're not really a bar chiyuva, they're never really fully bar mitzvah, they don't really have choice from a question of American law, and legality, they wouldn't be judged necessarily as an adult, but we will allow them to participate in the service, in prayer, etc., because that's something that we're shifting towards. And so it's a difficult it's just generally, and it's hard for me to pick the proper words. It's a difficult notion, this idea of somebody's visibility and then sort of quote unquote the imperfection of their visibility getting in the way of their being part of the avodah, of the sacred worship. And again, it's not an answer that satisfies me fully, but the idea of it sort of being a performance and public ritual is a different thing. And what I would finish with, and I don't know that I've done a fine job of at least for me of making me feel better about it, is that I believe Judaism is moving in the right direction. I don't know what's going to happen to Kohanim when there's a third Beit HaMikdash. I don't know if there are going to be animal sacrifices, but certainly whether it be with generally with women and women's active role in religious life, which was something that was limited. We're moving in a certain direction, even the Orthodox community, when it comes to people who have other sort of, we want to say, disfigurements, or people who have handicaps. We're certainly moving in a direction to empower those people as well. And I think that's, in a sense, the role of what the oral Torah is supposed to be. The written Torah is telling us something that was true in their time, distracting, not correct. But the oral Torah, the rabbis over time are moving in a certain direction to allow for a greater and a more, you can say, egalitarian idea within Jewish life. And I'll conclude with this, and we've said this many times before. Judaism, in many ways, is a much more egalitarian religion of its time at the time of the Torah. When Paro asked Moshe, who's going to serve your God? Moshe says, all of us, the men, the women, the young, the old. right? Egyptian religion was very limited. It was about the priests. Our religion was one everybody stood at Sinai, men and women. Everybody is supposed to go to the Hakel ceremony every 7 years, the men, the women, the young, the elderly. And so I think that is an idea that is embedded within the Torah, an idea that we are moving towards, um, even as we read some of the restrictions that are here in the Torah. Question of where, it's not just where it was, but which way is the vector, if that's the correct use of physics, which way is the vector moving? Which direction is it going in?